What a weird news cycle day we had here today. At the beginning of the day, there was a huge story, and we'll be talking about that shortly in the next video. And then, right after that, fucking president gets assassinated. It's in a little minor country, but I'd like to do a little bit more digging before we start talking about that, because that dude has some devious connections, and it's really looking like another one of those people who are affiliated with one of the biggest crime families in the United States that met an unnatural end. So, we'll probably be talking about that one over the weekend. And then you got this story right here. This one's been percolating under the surface for a few days now, about a week at this point, where, as you can see here, we got the CNN article up, and of course we got to bring in CNN, because if you're going to be talking about Tucker Carlson, one of the biggest detractors is, well, the entirety of CNN. Mostly it's that fucking human potato Brian Stelter, and then you got Oliver Darcy, whose job description at this point is basically who's popular at Fox News and we'll write a hit piece on them, okay? I don't blame you if you've never heard of Oliver Darcy. In fact, you probably shouldn't unless he moved into your neighborhood, and by law, he has to inform you when he does, and tell you to also keep your kids inside whenever he's outside. But why are they making the rounds at this point? Why am I bothering to bring up CNN, which is a dumpster fire of intellectual dishonesty? Well, there were some claims that were made on quite possibly the only opinion show that anybody watches now on regular basic cable. And Tucker Carlson came out and said, yeah, the NSA is spying on me. I got a source inside, and they're telling me that, yeah, definitely they're taking a look at me. And why wouldn't that be the case? You are the most high-profile mainstream media, news, opinion, whatever the fuck you want to call it, outlet. Why wouldn't they be paying attention to what you're doing, who you're talking to? Like, that totally makes sense. I know it was only 7 years ago, but I seem to remember that Ed Snowden made it pretty much public knowledge that the government, it doesn't matter what country you live in, the UK, Canada, the United States, your government knows exactly what you're doing at all times, okay? And the only way to really stop it is to keep a fucking cell phone in a lead box. No, I'm not talking about stick it in your ex-wife's snatch, but if you have any sort of location setting, Bluetooth capability, Wi-Fi, if you get connection to a public Wi-Fi location, okay, they can go in and they can figure out everything that you're fucking doing, okay? And I know for a lot of people, and especially at CNN, 7 years ago is a long goddamn time. So just as a little bit of a refresher before we take a look at what is developing here right now, 1 year ago, Thursday, one of the most consequential leaks of classified U.S. government documents in history exploded onto the world scene. The first story, based on documents from former National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden, was published. American families knew the spy agency was sucking up virtually all the data about them they wanted, full stop. Director of National Intelligence James Clapper admitted he lied to Congress 3 months before the Snowden leaks began. Ron Wyden asked the nation's top intelligence officer at the NSA collected data on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans. No, sir, Clapper replied, not wittingly. That was a fucking lie. But that point, of course, the NSA had quite wittingly been running a massive bulk telephone metadata collection program for years. The government had repeatedly asked the Secret Surveillance Court for permission to do so, and it deemed every American's phone record relevant to terrorism in the process. Exactly, looking for specific keywords. It didn't really have to do with anything that would have led you to think that they were a part of any extremist group, but now if you extrapolate that current data harvesting program that went on in 2013 and before that, and then now with the definition of fucking domestic terrorism right now, I'll just fucking let your mind run wild as to what they're recording. The House passed a bill ostensibly meant to stop bulk collecting of phone metadata. I'm sure they're paying attention to that as well. A federal judge said the NSA phone surveillance program is unconstitutional. You don't say. You don't say. It's funny to use the Huffington Post as a source from way back then because they're such a different outlet, because even you just read the first paragraph under this one. In December, U.S. District Court Judge Richard Leone issued a ruling in a lawsuit against the NSA program and said its technology was almost Orwellian and that James Madison would be aghast because other judges in the district have found differently. One in Manhattan dismissed an American Civil Liberties Union lawsuit, citing the threat of terrorists' bold jujitsu. The program still stands. Not decrying any sort of leftist surveillance state, because this was all happening not under Trump. Oh, no, this was underneath Obama and the widely popular Joe Biden. Because you remember, he's a part of the 3 biggest or most popular winning tickets in presidential history. I know, right? If only Obama would have stepped out of the way, that 2008 record would have just been totally fucking obliterated. Oh my god. But you can also tell that the ACLU has sucked for a long time as well. But yeah, they were spying on you then. What makes you think they aren't going to be spying on you into the future? So that's what immediately was like, yeah, okay, they're obviously spying on Tucker Carlson. He's like the one, maybe 2 guys that are left over at Fox that are worth a damn, if we're being completely honest. Fox News host Tucker Carlson made an explosive claim on a show Monday night that he had learned through a whistleblower that the National Security Agency is spying on him and planning to leak his communications in a bid to take him off the air. The Biden administration is spying on his Carlson declared to millions of Fox viewers. Yeah, they're just sad because barely anybody on the platform, CNN this is, can crack 750,000, like reliable sources. Brian Stelter's little dish rag, what does it get, 100,000 people at this point? I don't even think I'm underselling it. Like, that's what they top out at. Dude, live streams, fucking videos from most large content creators dwarf that on a daily fucking basis. And that's why they're the big mad, and they always got to put, oh, they have so many viewers that they're indoctrinating. No, you can just stop it there. We can tell that you're writing this through a jealous lens. You just wish you had that kind of an audience that you could spew your own propaganda on. Just because this is the practice you guys would take doesn't mean that's what Carlson does. I have my qualms with him. I think that he's a little bit more centrist and kind of fucking rubber-spined, but at the end of the day, he's more useful than he is detrimental, and you aren't ever going to get somebody who's going to be perfect for the situation, but he's as close as you're going to get at this point. But don't worry, all of these claims that Carlson made on his television show, oh yeah, no, those are disputed because CNN has their own sources, apparently. Barring an unusual circumstance, if a reputable news organization had confirmed that the NSA or any arm of the U.S. government was spying on one of its top employees, it would be a story of significant consequence. When the Washington Post, CNN, and the New York Times, they're all the same outlet. Like, what's the fucking difference? What is the difference, okay? The Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos. CNN, totally irrelevant. And the New York Times even admitted in the response to the Project Veritas lawsuit that they shouldn't be taken seriously because they do in fact intersperse opinions with their actual news coverage. So, oh, you know the 3 names that are there? Yeah, well, they're a shell of their former selves, or maybe they've always been that corrupt, but the light switch got fucking flipped on and all the cockroaches are just scurrying into the different corners. Recently learned that Trump's Justice Department had seized the records of its reporters, and revelations led to weeks of coverage and a commitment from the Biden administration to end such practices. Oh, okay. Did it say that it ended those practices? And I hadn't heard any of this stuff, so maybe that's a big bad for me, but why would it only be those outlets? Why wouldn't it be for all of the outlets? Or who's saying even what the fuck's in those records? So once again, you're not really disputing anything. All you're doing is saying, well, look over here. This is what Trump did. And it's like, well, okay, just look a little bit further into the past and look at what your current boss, Joe Biden, what he was doing. Or at least the administration he was a part of. Take a look at the mass surveillance campaign that was happening over there. Oh, but Orange Man bad. Go fuck yourself. And speaking of which, Tucker Carlson sought Putin interview at the same time the spying claim. Huh. Nobody knew about that until you guys dropped that. So, how about that whole surveillance thing, right? Weird. Tucker Carlson was talking to U.S.-based Kremlin intermediaries about setting up an interview with Vladimir Putin shortly before the Fox News host accused the National Security Agency of spying on him. Sources familiar with the conversation tell Axios. Who's shocked? Who the fuck is shocked? First of all, there's no problem with wanting to speak to Vladimir Putin. And second of all, it wasn't Carlson who was talking about this. It wasn't anybody affiliated with them. No, this was leaked. This was leaked by somebody in the deep state. Sucks to suck. Let's see what the cleanup crew has to say. The sources said U.S. government officials learned about Carlson's efforts to secure the Putin interview. Carlson learned that the government was aware of his outreach. There you go. There you go. They write it right in there. The government was aware. What branch of the government? Either the CIA or the NSA. You take your pick. Take your fucking pick. And at the basis of the extraordinary accusation followed a rare public denial by the NSA and that he had been targeted. Oh yeah, well the NSA said in a tweet that he wasn't being targeted, so I'll just go ahead and take them up for face value, and especially any claim that's made on Twitter. You should definitely take that without questioning any of the sources. Follow the science, wear the mask, and get the jab, you fucking bigot. Axios has not confirmed whether any communications from Carlson had been intercepted, and if so, why? Of course, yeah, just run your smear piece first and then just fucking confirm your sources afterwards. Go fuck yourself, you jealous bunch of cunts. That's all this is at the end of the day. It's fucking... Normally, Axios is fine. You just got to be very cognizant of who's writing the piece and who's doing the reporting. Much like every outlet out there, okay? Breitbart, the Epoch Times, if they're running a reprint from a different outlet, the Post Millennial, because I think they still employ Ian Miles Chong. There's a whole bunch of outlets out there that do good work on the whole, but yeah, the smear merchants that they get to author these pieces, you gotta take a look. The big picture. Carlson's charges instantly became a cause to celebrate on the right, or anybody who has a healthy distrust of the government and their spying capabilities. I think that would be alright to assume as well. But yeah, no. It's only the right at this point that cares about individual liberties and freedoms. You know, not just, you know, people who have independent thoughts, just people on the right, which feasted on the allegations of one of America's most prominent conservatives might have been monitored by the U.S. Intelligence Community, sorry. Yeah, that's true. He is not just one of the most prominent conservatives. When it comes to the media sphere, when it comes to being on television, nobody's even close. Hannity's a distant second when it comes to cable news talk shows. It's him, and then there's everybody else. Carlson told his roughly 3 million viewers more jealousy on June 28th, the day before he had heard that whistleblower from within the U.S. government who had reached out to warn us that the NSA is monitoring our electronic communications and is planning to leak them in an attempt to take our show off the air. What would be more effective than using the same fucking boogeyman the left has been using for, what, 5 years at this point? Marussia. Carlson wants to talk to Putin. Marussia. Carlson, he's almost like Alex Jones. You see, this is what they're doing. They can't cultivate their own audience. They can't continue to push the same fucking fear tactics over and over and over again. No. They gotta go ahead and they gotta compare him with the most extreme example out there, even if you actually listen to Alex Jones, even if you want to, just for entertainment's sake. Like, the dude is highly skilled to be able to sit in front of a microphone for 3+ hours every goddamn weekday and put on an entertaining show. You don't have to agree with everything that he says. I don't agree with everything anybody says, but he's being awfully right about a whole bunch of fucking things here lately, so maybe you should be paying attention to a little bit more of what he's saying instead of trying to demonize him and hang him on a couple of things that he was wrong on. But no, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing right here. Don't you see? Tucker Carlson's rallying up that far-right base just like Alex Jones was. That's why you need to kick him off the air. So yeah, I'd imagine the story's going to get a little bit crazier, but that's what we're finding out right now. Yeah, the government knew. And they were paying attention. Axios let it leak. They just put it in a little bit there. Oh, the government admits. Yeah, okay, cool. Nice, pal. But yeah, let's talk about the original big story of the day. Trump is going after the internet. It's couple months late, but thanks. And it's actually, you know, kind of the game changer that we're all looking for at this point. So thank God. With that said, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Catch y'all later.